Well, the Hawkeyes have rarely had that easy of a trip in Camp Randall Stadium, that's for sure. And by the looks of things, maybe an easier time at Kinnick against the Penn State Nittany Lions than we anticipated. We shall see coming up, of course, on Saturday. Welcome into Hawkeyes Live right here at the Voice of College Football, breaking down Iowa football for you. The Hawkeyes at 4-2, 2-1 in the Big Ten following the demolition of Wisconsin. Corey Brad, of course, right next to me from the Hawkeye of the Storm is your destination for Iowa athletics, football, and, of course, basketball with Basketball Media Days going on today, Corey.
Yeah, so I always say I'm not in my natural habitat. So, men's basketball tomorrow morning. We had women's basketball this morning, got Kirk this afternoon. That's the advantage of being in town on a Tuesday. You can kind of double dip. So, we got some good media availability and have more tomorrow. And then we'll also get to talk to Micah Hyde, who is being honored as the ANF, American Needs Farmers Award recipient. So he's going to talk to us on Zoom tomorrow. So don't ask me about I can see your face. You're going to ask me about this ANF award. And I really don't know the background of it. I do know that ANF is a big part of the foundation that Hayden Fry laid, and just the connection with Iowa and the farming community has been pretty substantial over the years. Kind of like the connection to Iowa and the Children's Hospital, different in a sense, I guess. But so it's been a good week.
Leave those comments and questions there in the chat, and keep in mind, folks, that basically you build this show. So please share and let people out there on social media and those people that you know personally know that we are talking Hawkeyes with all of you each and every Tuesday at 4 Central Time. All right, Corey, just in regards to this game at Camp Randall Stadium, I guess on one hand, it's a good thing that you chose not to go to the game, although, it was certainly a dominant effort by Iowa, but not much of a football game against just a beaten down football team. That was the first time that Wisconsin, I don't know if you saw the statistic, has been shut out at home since 1980.
Yeah, that's something we really didn't talk about during the postgame show with Matt Kroll and Coach Patterson. People missed that. Go find it either on this channel or my channel from the Hawkeye of the Storm. The lack of, coaching philosophy, concern, priorities, but there was no concern on Luke Fickell's part to get points on the board to avoid a goose egg. I mean, that was even talked about on the broadcast on FS1. Yes. I can't remember who the color guy is, but he made the comment like, you don't want to take that home or to take that into the locker room, a goose egg. They were just running the ball, had no interest in scoring. They just wanted to get out of there. And, I think it's just more of a testament to where they're at as a program right now. And, he's got bigger problems than avoiding a goose egg. And, whether you agree with that or not, yeah, they're a program in shambles. I mean, I am not shocked, but I'm surprised that he is still there. I really thought that at that first bye week, I thought they would get rid of him. Now they do have a second bye week. I don't, honestly, the first thing that goes through my head when talking about potential coaching changes is, in most scenarios, why not just wait to the end of the season? But I'm starting to realize that every week, if you have determined you're going to make a change, make it ASAP, because you can't get a quicker jump start on recruiting, on the portal, NIL, support, just in general. I'm not advocating for what Penn State did this past weekend. I think their situation's unique. I'm also not advocating against it, So with Luke Fickell's case, I'm a little bit surprised they didn't make the decision. They didn't fire him in the bye, because that tells me if they've got smart administration, which traditionally they have in the last 20 years, if they've got smart administration, that means they don't know. At least as of a couple weeks ago, they don't know if they're going to fire him. And I'm surprised by that. I had made the prediction here in week 2 that Gundy and Fickell would both be fired. It definitely didn't have Franklin on my bingo card. But here we are. Fickle still got a job despite the fire Fickle chance, and Gundy and Franklin are going to be going somewhere and enjoying their millions of dollars.
Well, like you said, none of us anticipated Franklin, and things happen so quickly in college football these days that consider this. Penn State scored first in overtime against Oregon. If they win that game, they're the likely number one team in the country.
Yeah. I mean,
in the rankings 3 weeks ago, they were a score away from being the number one ranked team in the country. And 3 weeks later, their coach is fired, who's been there for 13 years.
As I said at the outset, I got to be at that Kirk Ferentz press conference today, unlike usual Tuesdays. But I almost wish that I could have had a long form sit down with Kirk this week, because one of the questions I wanted, and it was brought up, of course, the Franklin news, but I wanted to ask him, like, how doesn't it feel to Kirk like, because I know his perspective on this. I don't think, he may not admit this, but he ain't a big Franklin fan, never was. But at the same time, my guess is his perspective on this, given who Kirk is and his perspective on a lot of things, is that 2 weeks, in some regards, got James Franklin fired. Now, I know what you're going to tell me. I know what you have told me. I know what Stephen A. Smith. I don't listen to Stephen A. Smith a lot, but I did hear.
Don't put the two of us in the same sentence, Corey.
Well, I got it. By the way, I got respect for Stephen A. Smith because I think he's got a lot of talent. I don't always agree with the things he says, and whatever. But I do think he's a talented guy. But he made the comment today, and I was just watching a short on YouTube, that James Franklin clearly deserved to be fired, and he brought up his record against top 10 teams and against top 25 teams. So I know that's going to be the fallback. I get that. But you are not going to convince me, nor will anyone else, that he would even be on the hot seat right now had they not lost to UCLA, or I'll just say, or Northwestern. Like, even if they had lost one of those games, he's not really on the midseason hot seat. So in a sense, you could argue 2 losses lost James Franklin the job. Yeah, like you just said, I mean, as of a couple of weeks ago, he was a few plays away from his team was going to be number 1 in the country. His preseason number 2 in the country. And I looked back, the AP preseason poll had, I think, like 4 votes separating number 1 to number 2. So that's how fast things can change. I don't know, and you may have the data, I don't know the last time we've seen any program, Division I program, lose 2 straight games, without having lost their quarterback or lost their coach or something, losing 2 straight games in which they were 22-point plus favorites in each of those games. And it's amazing. So you and I joked around a week ago, like, if he loses to Northwestern, is he fired? I don't think either one of us thought he was going to lose to Northwestern. I did think Northwestern would cover, but I didn't expect what we saw Saturday. And yeah, this is the new era. There's a lot of money out there, but there's also a lot of money out there. So guys are going to be entitled to more compensation if they're let go, but there are sources for those payments. And we've seen that now with in-state college, the decision that was made with that administration.
I've got a partial answer for you, because 1978 is when the current structure of FBS, FCS football was designed, and there has not been a team lose as a 20-plus point favorite in back-to-back weeks in that time.
That's incredible. That's an incredible stat. So, yeah, I think it's, I don't want to say inappropriate. I think it's wrong. All right, not morally wrong. I just think it's wrong to just quickly determine that what Penn State just did was wrong. It was improper, that it was a leap to judgment or a knee-jerk reaction, because what just happened over these last 2 weeks is unprecedented. And I think it's fair to surmise that James Franklin lost that locker room one way or another, whatever that looks like. Does that mean he lost a few guys and it became toxic? That's possible. Does that mean he lost one really strong leader? That's possible. Did he lose most of the team? That's possible. I don't know. I think it's always interesting. We'll talk about this in Big Ten Show here in a little bit. when you promote a guy like what's his face Smith.
Yeah.
Why am I drawing a blank on his first name? Holy cow!
Well, I am too.
Uh,
but we've got the guy to fill in the blank here in just a second. We'll bring him on.
totally ridiculous that I was going to say Jimmy, but it's not Jimmy Smith.
No, it's like Michael
Tucker Smith. No, it's not Michael Smith. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Holy
Coach
cow!
Smith.
But you bring in a guy that was James Franklin's right-hand man for so long, but he's also a Penn State guy, right? He's a Penn State guy. But I always just think it's awkward. You make a change like this, you just don't know what to expect. That was one of the questions I asked Kirk today. I asked him about Andy Kotelenki. Man, I'm not pronouncing his name correctly. It's a rough day. Terry Smith. Tucker Smith. Yeah, okay. Terry Smith. Thank you. But I asked about Andy Kotelenki, and Andy Kolenecki's first job was for Coach Don Patterson at Western Illinois. That's how he got his collegiate coaching start. Obviously had success at Buffalo, went to Kansas, now is at Penn State. It's been a struggle there. You could argue maybe he hasn't had the right piece at quarterback. Aller is a totally different guy than what Kolenecki was working with at Kansas State. I can't speak to what he had at Buffalo. So Grunkemeyer, I really don't know what type of a quarterback he is. I don't think Kirk, they can look at high school film, but they got one snap on Saturday from him. So yeah, you just don't. My question to Kirk was, do you expect them to these coaches to be coaching as auditions, like they're auditioning for positions potentially? Terry Smith's a perfect example. Here's a guy who's coached for a long time. He may have I don't know. Especially given the Penn State roots, he's not just some guy there. He may have he should have the attitude that, hey, if I turn this darn thing around, I'm going to go win myself this coaching job. And it's unlikely they hire anybody during the season. So go win the job. Go impress the heck out of everybody and go win the job. Go do what Leonard over at Wisconsin was not able to do, right? I guess he wasn't able to do because they hired Luke Fickell. And in hindsight, Leonard might have been the better option.
Yep.
But regardless, my point is, Don said it last night. We had a live show in Iowa City. You don't want to fight against an animal that's backed into a corner. And that's sort of what Penn State is right now. They're like an animal that's cornered. What are they going to do? They're probably going to fight. And there's no reason for Kolenecki and Smith and these coaches to not throw everything they have. Kirk doesn't anticipate that this will be, he brought up a Minnesota. I can't remember if he said 2002 or what year, but he brought up a game against Minnesota, I believe, last game of the season years ago. There was an interim coach, because I asked him the question: have you gone up against interim coaches that you sensed were kind of auditioning for the job? And he said, well, my first inclination is to say no to that, but then I was just thinking. He brought up a year against Minnesota when they had an interim coach, and he said he had told his team prior to the game, don't be surprised if they onside kick it on the first play of the game. And what do you know? They onside kicked it on the first play of the game, and his guys were not ready. His guys were backing up. And he said that was sort of an indication of what was happening in that game. So, but he brought that up as an example. He said, I don't anticipate that's what's going to happen, because I believe Penn State, first of all, that was last game of the season. So I understand that that's tangible evidence, differentiating the two circumstances. Kirk believes this will be a Penn State team that stays true to who they are. I'm just thinking, again, going back to the opportunity to audition for the job, not only does Smith have the opportunity, the time here left in the season to do this, he has got the talent. I don't know if any guys have, maybe Marty Leap, when we get him on here, will be able to tell us, have any guys entered the portal at this point, right? You get 15 days after a coach is fired. But if they haven't, or if they have, he has got so much talent to work with. He has got an advantage that the next coach might not have. or
Well,
the coach.
He's
Go
going
ahead.
to answer this question for us to a certain extent, but I'm guessing that regardless of what Terry Smith does with his team, he's not going to be the next permanent head coach at Penn State.
Why would you know that? If he goes out and wins the rest of their game,
I don't know that. That's what
well,
I'm surmising.
You're surmising that because you don't expect them to turn this thing around and win out. I'm saying if they go,
I'm surmising that because they fired James Franklin to go get another top flight head coach.
Well, that's a pretty, yeah. I just don't agree with that attitude. If that's the attitude, to go get another top flight head coach. So we're going to go get a guy like Matt Rule who's done nothing at Nebraska, or we're going to go get a guy like Marcus Freeman who has not won a national title. So all these things that we expect we're going to do, how many guys are on the market that have proven they can win national titles? Like, it's kind of a ridiculous
sport.
So it's sort of a ridiculous hiring criteria because,
Sure.
to me,
I didn't say that was the criteria. I said a top flight coach.
Well,
I didn't say he won a national championship.
I guess what I'm saying is if he goes out and they win out, or they win every game except that Ohio State game, shouldn't he be at the top of the list? Holy cow. I mean, what else is he supposed to do but totally turn a team around we just talked about those numbers. Never has there been in the modern era, never has there been a team that's lost 2 straight games where they're 22-point plus favorites. If he goes around, turns this thing around and wins at Iowa, they play Indiana, they play Ohio State. Yeah, it's a tall task, but I'm just saying he's got an advantage that other coaches across the country that are maybe trying to audition with their teams right now, they're trying to audition for the Penn State job. They don't have that level of talent. I'm just saying that should be the approach he takes. Maybe it won't be. And if it's not, here's my guess, Mark, they will continue to lose. That's my guess. They will continue to lose if that's the mentality that we're just trying to get through the season. And he's not trying to, it's not just about him, but his attitude with the talent they have, in my mind, should be we can win every game left on the schedule because we're that talented. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't approach it that way.
All right. So there's a lot of complexities here, and I bring in Marty Leap from the Whiteout Report. We appreciate Marty stopping by. Marty, basically a regular at this point. Because Penn State's supposed to win a national championship in the Big Ten, but then they plummet with some of the worst losses we've seen in memory, and then they fire their coach, and then they got to hire a new coach and all these things. So we'll just keep seeing Marty, I'm sure, over and over and over. So, Marty, I'll start with this because Corey made the comment that other coaches would not have been fired had they experienced what James Franklin experienced and what he failed to do the last 3 weeks. But this was not about just 2025. This was about what was expected, and it was about the failures of the past against the top teams. So, yes, if Kirby Smart or Ryan Day had the last 3 weeks that James Franklin had, people would be utterly shocked and horrified and would have no idea what's going on, but these guys wouldn't be fired. So it's obviously the culmination of just a big narrative that has hung over James Franklin for several years.
Yeah, it goes a lot deeper than these three. And the thing is, too, if you watched the games the last 2 weeks, especially that Northwestern game, you could not keep moving forward with this. It's unfortunate, Mark. I mean, you and I talked about it when I was on with you on Sunday. No one wanted it to end this way, right? Like, it's James Franklin's overall tenure should be remembered very positively by Penn State fans. He did a lot more good than that at Penn State, but it had to end. It had to end. You couldn't keep doing this every week. It was time. The biggest thing is, too, after the UCLA game, I remember I came on with you and Matt, and I said, this is it. He's not going to be the coach in 2026. And once you knew you were at that spot, the sooner you pull the plug, the better for all parties involved.
I agree.
You get a jump start because Florida's going to open. Florida State may open. Auburn may open. You get a jump start on them in searching for your coach. Also part of it with Penn State, the financial aspect of it, the way his buyout works, there's a clause in there where he has to make a legitimate effort to find another coaching job. And I've got no doubt James Franklin still wants to coach. So if he finds another coaching job by a certain date, his buyout drops by like $40 million. So that was a factor as well.
Real quick, time out. I have a question about that because I saw, you know this much better than I do, Marty, but I saw something on social media somewhere indicating what you just said. So there's the clause in the buyout that if he gets another job, Penn State owes him less. My question is, and he's required to job search.
Yes.
So wouldn't logic, and I'm assuming this is not just coming back to logic, when you're talking about, 6, 7, 8 figures, doesn't he have legal advice telling him, wouldn't you think that they'd be telling him, don't go get a head coaching job, don't go look for a head coaching job, find an analyst job somewhere, make very little and do very little, and milk Penn State's bank? Why would you go get a job where you have to take more responsibility if you're not going to get paid more? You're just going to get paid the difference. There'd be no reason to take a high major job.
I mean, you're not wrong. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more going on behind the scenes between himself, his representation, Pat Kraft, that people don't know about. But the one thing I will say is, I have no doubt James Franklin doesn't want to be done coaching. He didn't want to be done at Penn State. I think by the end of the Northwestern game, he was ready to move on because everybody knew at that point this is what was best for all parties involved. But I mean, one job I've seen some people mention for him that I think he would kill it at UCLA. Like, it's just, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying I have no doubts he still wants to coach. Regardless, Mark, you and I talked about this a couple of times in the last week or two. When you're a school like Penn State, you've got enough money. You'll find the $50 million to make a coach go away if that's what you're looking for. And one other thing, Corey, you mentioned too, the transfer portal. I was unaware of this till like a day or two ago, so I'm guessing you were as well. With the new one portal window, it's changed. So when your coach leaves, once a new coach is hired, 5 days later, your 15-day window opens up. So players can't aren't free to. I mean, they could enter the portal right now, but that's part of the new one.
Wait, hold on a second. So my understanding of the new rule, and I'm not some expert on, my understanding of the new rule was it just went from 30 to 15.
No.
You're telling me a guy can't enter the portal until the next portal window or the next coach gets hired? That makes no sense.
Yeah, there's something there where I think what the idea was from the NCAA, whoever's behind this, is you set that once the new coach is hired, you have 5 days so that coach gets a legitimate shot at roster retention and talking to these kids, and then that's when your 15-day window opens up.
So you're expected, just to clarify, these students are expected to just deal with the unexpected. A program cannot have a head coach for 2 months, and a player is expected to just live and be a part of that uncertainty. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I also think the term student athlete doesn't really exist anymore, especially whenever you've got a roster that's as expensive as Penn State's was this year. So I think that was a factor as well. Right or wrong, I have a big part of it. But also, even if it wouldn't have been for that, I think a lot of guys wouldn't. I think there's a lot of guys who would have. I wouldn't have expected big roster turnover right away, regardless, because this team loves Terry Smith. He is. I expect whoever the next head coach is to do everything in their power to retain Terry Smith on staff. There's a reason he was, I think, literally the very, other than the guys that came with him from Vanderbilt, Terry was the very first hire James Franklin made when he got here. That was for a reason. And you mentioned earlier about him being James's right-hand man. There was also more than once where it was well known he had some conversations with some uncomfortable truths with James Franklin. So I do think that you're going to see some changes on that front moving forward. I also think this is a team that they're not happy what happened. You're not going to be happy regardless. People are picking to win a national championship preseason, and here we are on October 14th. You haven't won a conference game yet. So they already were an angry group. And today, each of the team captains had a media briefing today. Well, one team captain from defense, one from offense, one from special teams. And the common thread there was, hey, we're mad. We're mad at ourselves because we feel like we let James down. We're the reason he got fired. Had we played better, he wouldn't have been fired. So I think that's going to be that was going to be a motivating factor for them moving forward as well. Does it mean anything on Saturdays? I don't know. This team
that's not what to me. This is just me commenting from the outside, Marty. What you just said, I haven't listened to those team captains, but if the team captains came forward and said what you just said, that we feel like we let James Franklin down, I would be very worried if I was a Penn State fan. Because to me, that gives absolutely no indication that they recognize the problem. That's what that tells me.
Well, I don't think
they don't.
The problem. I agree with that because if if you watch this team play the last 2 weeks, like Mark, you and I talked about on Sunday, they were one bounce of a ball away from being the number one team in the country. When Dante Moore fumbled that snap in overtime, that bounces towards the line of scrimmage instead of right back to him. Penn State's probably the number one team in the country, right? But then you come out against UCLA and you look like you don't care, especially defensively. And then against Northwestern, it was one of the just most disgusting, sloppiest portrayals of Penn State football I've witnessed in my time. It might be the worst thing since the 6-4 Iowa game that I've seen. Obviously, there's something missing there.
Thing of beauty, by the way, but go ahead.
There's something off there, right? So I agree that's a problem. I think there's a lot of problems with this team right now.
I'm just saying, Marty, I'm just saying if the captains are saying, well, we didn't play well enough, they don't recognize how bad this is. They don't recognize that this is more than, well, we just didn't play well. There is something culturally wrong.
I agree.
It's not time to
this move was made.
It's not time to acknowledge that we're not playing well. It's, to me, what I would want to hear as a Penn State fan is we are rallying around that guy right there, Terry Smith. Whatever he says, we're going to listen to. That's what I would want to hear if I'm a Penn State fan.
Yeah, and they did. These guys are going to rally around Terry Smith. Like, I think moving forward, like Saturday, for example, I think this goes one of two ways. I think Penn State comes out, plays the best game they have all year, and I'm not going to say they're going to run away with it because it's Kinnick at night. You're not going to run away with it. Or they're going to come out and lay down and die. I don't think there's an in-between. I
would be surprised if Iowa kicks their butt. But I would also be surprised if I think it's going to be a close. I just can't imagine it not being close.
Well, what I'm saying is lay down. I agree it'll be close, but I'm saying Penn State lays down and die. It's one of those where Iowa wins at like 20-6, and you never felt like Penn State ever had any remote chance whatsoever. You know what I mean? One of those type of things. But I think they're going to rally around Terry Smith. Terry Smith is, other than James Franklin, is probably more beloved than any coach in that locker room. He's so involved in so many kids' recruitments. I think they're going to rally around him. I'm hopeful they come out and play well Saturday night. We'll see what happens. But yeah, moving forward, you touched on it. There's clearly some sort of cultural issue here. And for a long time, that was one of the big positives of James Franklin was he built such a strong culture at Penn State. And I think it almost proved to be his undoing because he always would pride himself. You'd hear him so often say, hey, we're one of the few programs that still function like a college program. We want kids in here for 4 to 5 years, retention, development, which is great. But I think, again, to go back to like Mark said earlier, this was a lot more than a 3-week thing that led to him being fired. During the offseason, behind closed doors, and a lot of it has started to come to light in the last few days, there was a lot of butting of heads between himself and athletic director Pat Kraft over how they were doing NIL. Pat Kraft wanted a true general manager in there to oversee this stuff. James Franklin did not. And when it came to roster retention, James Franklin was very focused on retaining the entire roster to the best of their ability, which is fine and dandy. But when you have a window like you had this year, setting that money aside to preserve your 4th string running back who might be your starter next year, that's great. But that's not doing anything for you now. I think he and Pat Kraft butted heads where Pat Kraft even publicly stated, hey, we need to be aggressive in the portal. Here's the positions we need to attack in the portal. One of those positions was defensive tackle. Bear Alexander and David Blay, who are both having phenomenal seasons on 2 of the best defenses in the country, visited. And Blay was a guy who I think wanted to come to Penn State because he's a Pennsylvania kid, and they weren't willing to do what it took financially. And I think that's where the cracks really started. And, you know, you look back now, had they been more aggressive in the portal and focused less on roster retention, yeah, that's a bridge you would have to cross in a year or two. But I don't think we're in this position now. And I think that's a big part of it where as time went on, he and Pat Kraft started to butt heads more and more on what they wanted, how they wanted to run this program moving forward. It included over the summer, James Franklin wanted another contract extension. He didn't get it. And I just think coming into the season,
wanted another contract extension when he's got a contract that gives him $50 million and they fire him.
he wanted an extension after the playoff run last year, and Kraft wouldn't be. No, go out and win a national championship this year, absolutely. Go out and make another deep playoff run, absolutely. But there were cracks in the foundation starting to form in the offseason that I think at the time were easy to overlook. But looking back now, that's a big reason how we got to where we're at, and I think that's why. You know, again, like you said, Mark, this wasn't because of 3 games that this happened. And I think part of it, too, is, you know, a good friend of mine, Clay Sauerteig, who I used to cover Penn State with, both the Black Shoot Irish and at Rivals, now writes for Bro Bible. He said in a lot of ways, Penn State football had become the definition of insanity, right? Just trying the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And he wasn't saying that in a way of like, hey, you got to move on from James after the Oregon game. But of a, hey, I understand anyone who's ready to move on. I understand if the school wants to try and go in a different direction, right? Things run their course. And sometimes you have to take a risk. And they took a risk firing him. There's no doubt about it because there's no guarantees they're going to get a better coach, right? Like, again, like I said, if James Franklin wants to keep coaching, which I believe he does, he'll coach next year. There are 90% of the schools in the country probably fire their coach for James Franklin. You're taking a gamble. You're taking a gamble here. And I think the idea is the gamble is you get someone else in here where you've been so close so many times to getting over that hump that even just that different voice, that different perspective, and I think especially changing how they handle NIL and getting a true general manager in, I think the idea is those are the things that can help get you over that hump. And then, like I said, there definitely was a lot of cracks in the foundation behind the scenes between him and Pat Kraft that I think just finally all bubbled up. And, at about 7:00 on Saturday, you knew it was it. I mean, go back and watch James Franklin leaving the field Saturday. He knew that was his last game. If you watch him, he waits and hugs every single player as they come off the field, stands there, looks around Beaver Stadium, kind of took it all in one last time. He knew that was it. He knew that was it. It had to be done.
Can I ask you this, Marty? 4 years ago, I remember, I think 4 years ago, we were doing these shows, Mark. And I believe, Marty, you did our pregame just like today before Iowa Penn State in a Kinnick. That was the game where Taquan Roberson comes in for Sean Clifford.
Yes.
And Roberson gets he and the entire offensive line, they get like 3 or 4 false starts because they can't hear. They can't hear down that north end zone. Not to totally change gears, because Mark, you may have more to say on this. I know you guys have talked a lot about the Penn State situation, but that's my next question. Tell us, who is Grunkemeyer? Am I saying his name right?
Grunkemeyer.
Grunkemeyer. Okay.
Tell us. At least from what I've gathered, that first E is silent.
All right. So tell fans about Grunkemeyer. What kind of a quarterback is he? Does he fit more into the Kolenecki system than Aller did? And then I guess before you answer that question, you heard Mark and I talking about this. Should Terry Smith be on a list to be the next head coach? And if he's not, why on God's green earth is he the interim head coach? Make someone else the head coach, man. Mark, are there unemployed people out there right now? Could they have gotten someone else mid-season to be the interim coach? Could you have gotten Paul Chryst? Would Nick Saban have done it for the certain amount no, don't laugh.
Urban Myers.
Could you get Urban Meyer? Get somebody in there that's a viable candidate forward. If Terry Smith is not a viable candidate forward, I don't get the point of this. And don't tell me you're trying to salvage the season.
I want to hear Marty's response to Terry Smith's shot at the job. And I also want to hear his response to what is the reasonable list of candidates.
Okay. Terry Smith's not going to be the head coach of Penn State long term.
Why are we saying that? Why do we keep saying that?
Don't pay $50 million to make one of the most successful coaches of the last decade go.
Why is he the interim? Explain why he's the interim.
Because he's the most well-respected, most loved person left in that locker room.
Okay, that's not my question. I don't care if he's the answer to
the question, though. That's why he's the interim.
Okay, most loved, most respected. He could be your grandma Betsy, but that doesn't mean she should be the interim head coach. My question is, why would you? Well, we can talk about her later, but why? Explain to me why, if you have an option here, you just fired the head coach in this day and age of college football, why you would not put someone that is a potential candidate in there to debut and audition. Why would you not do that when you have an opening? You have an opening.
When has that ever happened?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That first off, it doesn't happen.
Okay, it doesn't happen. So who's the favorite to be the next head coach at UCLA right now?
I don't have the slightest clue.
Who?
I don't know.
PJ Fleck. I don't know. I'm just throwing out a name.
I'm guessing the favorite right now, at least behind closed doors, is the guy who's coaching them right now. Because he's 2-0.
They're in two
because he's he is
2-0
and he's turned this whole thing around.
Mark,
the point is the point is, the reason I'm bringing this up, guys, is because very often, at least in the past, interim guys have an opportunity to earn a job. That's I mean, am I losing my mind here? Like that's not a new thing. Interim coaches have.
Well, first of all, it's been pretty infrequent that a coach of James Franklin's accomplishments has been fired.
I agree. And so when you bring up to me, well, when does that happen anywhere else? I'm telling you, it's unprecedented. So if Terry Smith is obviously not the next coach, then I think they should have done something more unprecedented in bringing in a different interim. You know, that's an exotic idea, but that's
the logistics of it just don't work. You can't bring a coach in who has no experience with this team, with the playbook, with the roster, with anything. Like that's just
for Marty. I'm asking you, for if the season's over and nobody cares, what's the point of not doing that? What's the harm in doing it?
But who of that stature is going to do that? Going to accept that? Like Urban Meyer's going to come in midweek and say, "I have no idea who anyone is," and I'm going to risk my legacy.
My interim.
Why would he risk his? Nobody's risking their legacy coming in trying to take over a dumpster fire for half a season. Nobody's risking their legacy.
But somebody of Nick Saban or Urban Meyer's stature
go get Bob
take over a team. Or Bob Stoops.
Didn't Bob Stoops do that at Oklahoma for a bowl game?
That's completely
for a bowl game.
I don't want to hear it. My point is
one game that's separated by a month from the rest of the season, and it's the last game of the season.
Barry Alvarez coached the Rose Bowl and beat them up for Arkansas,
and it's his alma mater, and he's going to do it.
I don't care
that he's been coaching forever.
He was still around the program all the time. That's night and day.
I'm just saying, extreme, exotic, unprecedented situations call for unprecedented measures at times. That's my opinion, and I don't agree with I don't agree with either one of you. I'm not a Penn State insider like you, Marty, but to me, Terry Smith should at least he should have a chance. Like he should be told by the administration, Terry, if you go out there and kick butt, you're going to get an interview, and we're going to consider you. That should be the approach.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that's not the case. That's not the situation.
Well, then, like I say, they should have done something else. But go ahead. That's my opinion. But
no, with
Grunkemeyer, go back to.
Yeah. So with Ethan Grunkemeyer, first off, I do think he will fit the Koldenicki system a little better than Drew. He's definitely more of a drop back guy than a true dual threat, but he's also a better athlete than Drew Aller, more of a runner than Drew Aller. And he was no schlum himself as a recruit. I couldn't remember the exact. I knew he's a consensus 4-star, so I pulled it up. 247 Sports had him as the 105th best player in the country and 7th quarterback. On3 had him 108th and the 8th best quarterback. Excuse me. So it's not a lack of talent.
He did not have as many high major offers as I would have expected a guy with those rankings to have.
Correct. But if you go look at Drew Aller's recruitment, neither did he. And they were very similar because they both committed so early to Penn State that in recruiting, once the quarterback dominoes start to fall, usually all the top teams get their quarterbacks locked up. So you don't see that happen with quarterbacks a lot. I mean, if you go look at Drew Aller, other than Notre Dame, and then Ohio State offered very late. Outside of those two, he was the same way. And 247 Sports had Drew's number one player in the country. It's just because they were committed to Penn State so early.
Is Drew Aller, looking back, was he the best player in that class?
No, I mean, he didn't turn into the best player. I understand why he was rated so high because he had the ceiling, he had the tools, he had the ability. It just never panned out.
I think you're probably right, though, Marty, that a guy commits early and quarterbacks aren't going to necessarily get those offers. I'm just saying it does make me the first thing I looked at is I looked at his offer list and I'm like, wow, I don't see an Ohio State, I don't see an LSU, I don't see a Texas and Alabama. So that surprised me a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, that's what it was. He was committed very early. And it's, again, quarterback recruiting is so much different than other positions where if a guy commits early and blows up, the big scores and come after him. Typically, you only take one quarterback. And if you already got your quarterback, you're not going to start flirting with someone else, a quarterback, risk making your person angry. They leave, and then you don't get the other guy anyway. Grunk is a talented kid. He's doesn't have as much raw talent and just God-given ability as Drew Aller. But I'm going to be excited to see him play. I mean, again, in a season like this is the kind of stuff that you get excited for. And I mean, Fortunately, at Penn State, it's been a long time since there's been a season like this. Hey, let's see what Grunk can do. Let's see what some of these young guys can do. I will be very curious to see how much do they keep the training wheels on Saturday. Because your first career start, if Penn State was 6-0 in his first career start was at Kinnick at night, that's not easy. It's made even more difficult by the position Penn State's in. I also think this year, in a lot of ways, they kind of kept the restrictor play to an extent on the offense, and I wonder how much of that was more James Franklin than anything else. So now that Kotelnicki's really going to have full reign on his offense here, I'll be curious to see what it looks like. Curious to see if they are a little bit more aggressive in some areas. But yeah, I mean, Ethan Grunkemeyer, like I say, he's a kid who's got talent. There's no doubt about it. But he's in a tough spot. You mentioned, trying to find film on him. He played one series against SMU in the playoff last year. That was his first career appearance. He played one snap against Northwestern on Saturday, and then he played sparingly against Nevada and Villanova in non-con.
And real quick, there's no shame. There's no shame in being the guy behind Aller and Perbula.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the thing. Like it's not like he hasn't been playing because the guys in front of him were bums and he couldn't figure it out. Like this was very much the progression plan. I mean, I remember coming on here last year on shows saying, "Hey, I honestly don't know if Bo Perbula is next up. It might be Grunkemeyer." So this was, especially when Perbula entered the portal, this was always the plan, was for Grunk to be the next guy that just unfortunately came a lot sooner than they wanted and came in some very difficult situations. So I'll be excited to see what he can do. I definitely think if you're Penn State fans, you got to temper your expectations a little bit because, again, not only is it his first career start, it's in one of the toughest environments in the Big Ten against one of the best defensive minds in college football. It's not going to be easy for him. And then you get a bye week, and then you go to Columbus, and then Indiana comes to town. So it doesn't get any easier. But, yeah, I'll be excited to see what Ethan can do because, again, like I said, I think he fits the Kotelnicki system a little bit better than Drew as well because he is more of an athlete and a little bit more of a runner. Not a true dual threat by any means, but definitely more athletic and a better runner than Drew.
Will they be 0-6 in the Big Ten?
If I had to bet on it, yeah. I don't think. They're definitely not going to beat Ohio State or Indiana. And I don't think they're going to win. Again, it's not going to surprise me if they win Saturday, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to be 0-6 in the Big Ten. I think them going 0-9 in the Big Ten is not impossible. Because if you look at the back after
0-9. I'm sorry.
The thing is, these guys, again, some of this goes back to the culture issues. These guys came back to win a national championship, right? That's why Nick Singleton and Katron Allen came back. That's why the senior receivers transferred in. That's why Denai Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant and Zakee Wheatley and Nick Dawkins all came back, was to win a national championship. That's off the table now. And if this just keeps sliding, you're going to see guys, even if they don't check out in the terms of where they opt out and quit playing, they're going to check out. They're not going to care. They're going to start looking forward to the NFL.
But Mark, you understood what I said when I responded to Marty's comment about what the captain said, and they said they felt like they're not playing well enough. Like, you got where I'm coming from on that, right? Like,
sure.
I get where you're coming from too. Like I said, if clearly they're not, there's something that's missing there.
There's a disconnect. Like, you don't know what's. Yeah. If I was a media guy, and I wouldn't do this unless I was an opposing media person, but I'd look at him and say, I don't think you know what's going on. Yeah, because everybody else sees it and you don't.
Yeah, there's definitely a disconnect of some sort there, but it's just, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think they'll lose the next three. They'll put you 0-6. Your last three, you have Michigan State is probably fighting for bowl eligibility. Nebraska, who, if they keep winning games, might have a lot to play for. And then you get Rutgers at the end of the year, and like, Rutgers is Rutgers, but Rutgers has never beaten Penn State, and they hate Penn State. So they take if they're not going to care if the one year they can clip Penn State is where Penn State comes limping in, leaking oil at 3-8 in the last game of the year with an interim coach and half the team opted out. They're not going to care. They're going to be happy to say they finally beat Penn State. So I think they'll get one somewhere, just law of averages or something. But I'm not going to be stunned if they wind up 0-9 in the Big Ten. I'm really not.
That's crazy.
And the worst part is. And like Corey, you mentioned this before I got on, I heard you guys talking. Like it's not like this team doesn't have talent. The talent's there. It's not like they've been beset by injuries or something. Like, I mean, now you could argue that with Drew, but the season went to hell before Drew got hurt. Like,
yeah,
it's wild. But
because I watched all of UCLA, Penn State. I did not watch any of Northwestern, Penn State. But when I saw the score 22-21, and then I saw Aller off the season, I'm like, oh man, so they lost their quarterback and they lost. But then I found out when he got hurt, and I'm like, they were going to lose anyways. I mean, now maybe
losing, yeah.
maybe they go down there and get a field goal. Maybe they convert a critical down and get a field goal, but they were already on track to lose. So yeah, it is amazing. So yeah, I kind of, Mark, we can fight about this later, but the interim thing, I don't know. I guess I do feel very strongly about, if I'm in that position, I'm auditioning. And the whole reason why I'm bringing it up is because the reason I asked Kirk about it is because I do wonder if maybe it's not in Kirk's mind, but if it's in the back of Phil Parker's mind, that to what Marty said too, like that has been talked about, that Andy Kolenecki was he really given full reins? He was that was a great Kansas offense. And Kirk brought that up today. One thing he knows about Andy Kolenecki and that entire Buffalo staff that came over, they revived one of the worst Power 4, Power 5 programs in the history of the Power 5 in Kansas. And they did it on the offensive side. So that's why he was such a good candidate for that job. So he knows about offensive football. And it's going to be interesting to see if they, especially with those corners, if there's a position on the football field on defense that Iowa's been most vulnerable, it'd be on Deshaun Lee's side of the field.
Yeah. Again, it's. I'll be curious. The offense, like you said, Kolenecki had the track record, right? And even last year, the offense was much better than it was this year. And there were times this year I got the vibes that Kolenecki didn't really trust Drew Aller, which, again, just that's a major problem if it's your fourth-year senior quarterback and you don't trust them. Because there were times where, against UCLA, against Oregon, even where it's like, hey, this is a spot you need to throw the ball, or like, hey, let your quarterback make a play, and they didn't give him a chance to do that. So I'll be curious to see what that looks like from that front as well. I mean, I'm not that I imagine you have much more faith in Grunk, because if you don't trust your senior 3-year starter. But yeah, that's definitely going to be a matchup to watch on Saturday. And just, yeah, it's hard to have any sort of faith in this offense right now. Cause I mean, you mentioned when you saw this, oh, hey, Drew Aller got hurt and they lost. And you're like, oh, they were already losing when he got hurt. It was because the offense couldn't do anything. I mean, the defense gave up 22 points, but Northwestern got a short field on a muffed punt. Drew Aller threw an interception in the end zone. Like, it's just right now, it's hard to trust this. I mean, this offense just struggled against a defense that doesn't have a pulse. It's going to be hard to trust them against the defense with a pulse, especially while making a quarterback change.
Hey, where's Jim Leonard right now? Anybody know?
He was with the Packers, wasn't he?
He was with the Packers.
I mean,
he still is.
But real quick, because I know we're running out of time here and we're going to hop over the Big Ten show. You've talked about it, Marty. Give me a quick top 5 who should be on the list right now for Penn State.
I mean, any list, I'm not a fan of them, and if it's the higher, I'm going to hate it. But any list has to have Matt Roll due to the obvious connections, not just to Penn State, but to Pat Kraft. I would hate that hire. Matt Ray, the big knock on James Franklin's not winning big games, right? Roll's much worse in that aspect, in addition to being a lesser recruiter. But he's a Penn State.
Real quick, why is he on the list? Everybody keeps telling me, why is he on the list?
Well, he went to Penn State, and even more than that, the athletic director, he and Pat Kraft are literally best friends.
You know who also went to Penn? You know who also went to Penn State? The current interim coach.
I would rather Terry Smith than Matt Roll, in all honesty. But no, you have to have Roll on there. If I'm the athletic director, and from what I've gathered, there at least a conversation is going to be had or has had. I make Urban Meyer tell me no if he's interested in coaching.
Hey, real quick, great fit. I mean, great. No, I'd go after him. He'd be number 1 on my list.
Yeah, he would be number 1 on mine as well. And from what I've gathered, I think Pat Kraft is going to at least make a phone call there and see if he's interested in having a discussion on things. Eli Drinkowitz is another one I absolutely love, who I think would be a tremendous fit there. And of course, the fun there of, can you bring Bo Preview back with him? But no, I've always been very high on Drinkowitz as a coach. And I think if you're Penn State, you need something offensive here to kind of jumpstart this, which is where Drinkowitz fits in. Will Stein, offensive coordinator at Oregon, is another coach I'd be very interested in bringing in for an interview. I think he's a rising star offensively. And then, man, for 5th, and this is one that I don't know how realistic it would be, because I think the guy could get an NFL head coaching job if he wants, but I'd give Joe Brady a call. He got his coaching career started at Penn State. We saw the success he had at LSU. I would give Brady a call as well to see if he'd be interested. But those – Again, I
Nope.
personally am a Roll fan, but you got to have him on there, and then the other 4 would round out who I would have as my 5.
And you didn't mention Marcus Freeman, who is reportedly going to be on the list.
Yeah, I see. He would. That would be a home run hire. I just don't see how that's realistic at all. That's the main reason why I left him off the list. Like, obviously, if Marcus Freeman's willing to at least have a conversation with you, you have to do it, because I think that would be an absolute home run of a hire.
Hey, how about real quick? How about PJ?
No, PJ Fleck, to me, A, school like Minnesota is the perfect fit. B, the cultural, there were people at Penn State who didn't like James Franklin's energy. PJ Fleck, some of the old heads, their heads may literally explode. Some of their biggest donors were quit donating money, not because they didn't want to donate it, because they'd literally have a heart attack if PJ Fleck was hired.
I got a name for you, and I can't take credit for this one. Somebody brought it up. I would like to be able to credit who it was. It might have been Matt Zemek. Jeff Brom.
Brom, I would put not in terms of the energy, attitude, that sort of thing, but coaching wise, I'd put in a similar boat to Fleck, where I think that mid-tier power 4 is just the right fit for him. So that's why I'd be hesitant on Brom. One of the guys I did not mention, though, that I would think would be a good fit, but his alma mater is probably going to open up, and then maybe where he winds up as Jed Fish.
Well, I know that there's the Matt Rule Penn State connection, but Fleck and Brom have both accomplished more than Matt Rule.
I agree. That, again, I've said it before. If Matt Rule went to literally any other college, I don't think he's on this list. Or if there was literally, even if he was a Penn State grad still, but there was literally any other athletic director, I don't think there's a smoke there is.
Okay.
But you're an alum. He went to State College High School. The athletic director is quite literally your best friend. People are going to, and then of course his press conference yesterday didn't do any favors either. I mean, you would have thought he was the coach of Penn State the way he was talking about it. So those dots are going to be connected.
Okay. Marty, we appreciate you being here. I think maybe Corey had to fill up his gas tank or something. I don't know. So let us know where the fine folks here with the Iowa channel can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. You see there, Marty L_53, the Whiteout Report podcast. Same thing on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days. You can find us on YouTube if you're interested. Our game preview for Saturday's game will be live tomorrow evening, somewhere in that 8 to 9 range. We'll tweet it out and whatnot during the day once we have that time frame hammered down. And then every Saturday, about 20 to 30 minutes, if not sooner, after the game ends, we'll go on. We'll be live, do our recap of the game. So yeah, after you take in your typical Iowa pre- and post-game shows, feel free to come check us out for this weekend.
Appreciate you being here, Marty.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we'll run into each other at some point soon.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. I'm sure there'll be something else come up with coaching or whatever it may be. So we'll talk soon.
Thanks, Marty. All right, we are headed on over to the Big Ten Live Show. So Corey and myself, the Big Ten Live Show, it's over on the main channel. And we do that every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So follow us on over. We're going to talk Big Ten football with Corey and myself, and calls. So you can call us up to talk about the Big Ten schedule coming up here in week 8.